What's going on, everyone? It's Kyle Henderson along with Tony Sukalis. This is the Bama Factor Daily. Thank you very much for watching. We appreciate you guys more than you know. Tony, how's it going today?
It's going pretty well. Big night for Alabama basketball last night. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I wanted to start. And first off, if everybody could definitely hit the thumbs up, like and subscribe, we really appreciate that. A lot of moving parts on Bama Insider, and you guys make things go round for us. So we appreciate you more than you know. We're going to talk about Alabama basketball, of course, to lead off the show. We're going to talk about potentially Alabama's new offensive line coach, Doug Marrone. Alabama could theoretically have two head coaches on the staff from the NFL. We're going to dive into that. And then we're going to talk about some freshmen that could break out this coming season that played less than 150 snaps, right, Tony? Is that it?
Yeah, that's the kind of ramifications or qualifications we put in for that story.
Okay, cool. So let's get right into it, and let's talk about this Alabama basketball team, because I think we generally cover football, and rightfully so, but what Alabama basketball is doing right now is quite simply incredible. I mean, the way that they started out last night, it was crazy. I've never seen anything like it. Alabama defeats LSU 105-75. And it was funny because the game before it was like a Pac-12 game, and it was like 65 to like 59. And then the next game, Alabama almost has like 65 by halftime or whatever. Alabama is now 7-0 in SEC play, 12-3 overall. Petty went off 24 points, made 8 3-pointers last night. Your general thoughts about this basketball team? Nate Oates has this program rolling. Kind of your take from last night, and then let's kind of talk about Alabama basketball in general.
This is exactly the kind of team that Nate Oates wanted to build at Alabama. It shoots threes, it hustles, it plays defense. Like let's also not forget the fact that Alabama, despite hitting the threes, despite having like an early 20-point lead, they were running up they were beating LSU in energy too. And this is a real blue collar team. So when the shots are falling like this and the energy is happening and the team's playing defense, I mean, this is the team that Nate Oates, envisioned. I think they had 14 turnovers or something like that, maybe 16 turnovers. I can't remember. So there's things to clean up. But when you look at this Alabama team, this is about, Nate Oates claims it hasn't quite reached its ceiling, but it's pretty close. And I mean, look, the team last night, the way that they played, would have beaten any team in the nation. I mean, When you shoot 53% from three, you're going to win any game you play. And so that really shows you that this Alabama team can beat anyone. I think if it started right now, the tournament, you'd have to put them as like a 2 or a 3 seed. And, they're going to be a tough out in the tournament if they keep on playing like this. And look, they did all this without Jordan Bruner. A starting forward, a guy that can really contribute as well. So really bright times for Alabama basketball.
Yeah, it's really incredible to see kind of the year-over-year transformation of this program. And I never would have thought that they would be 7-0 in conference play at this point during the season. And one thing that really stands out about these guys is the fact that they can put so many points on the scoreboard. I mean, 105 points is fun to watch, but it's ridiculous, how when they heat up, I mean, like you said, nobody in America could probably beat them last night just because they are lights out. Tell me a little bit about this team. I know, John Petty led the way with 24 points. And who are some other contributors, other guys who are kind of catching some attention, earning kind of that blue collar title from Nate Oates?
I think last night you saw really Alabama's full potential. You had guys like Javon Quinterly make 6 threes. Joshua Primo made 6 threes. I mean, Quinterly's a McDonald's All-American that transferred to Alabama last year, had to sit out due to NCAA rules. So he's really coming in as a point guard. And it seems like he's kind of getting it more. I think that they had to kind of preach that blue collar mentality to him, and I think he's kind of picking that up more. And then you got a guy like Joshua Primo, who, has the potential to be a lottery pick at some point in his career. Probably not this year, but who knows? I mean, if he keeps on like last night, I mean, maybe. But you got those two guys. You got a workhorse in Herb Jones, a guy that is going to be in the NBA next year. He improved his overall game, his offensive game, but really it's his defense and his just intangibles that just kind of stand out for this team. You just got so much depth on this team too. Look, I didn't even mention Jaden Shackelford, who didn't have a 3 last night, but is one of Alabama's better 3-point shooters. Obviously, you've got John Petty. You got guys off the bench, Keon Ellis, Juwan Gary. Those guys they can hustle. They can really provide points off the bench. So there's just a lot. I'm missing a few guys as well, but there's a lot of guys. Alex Reese. There's a lot of guys that can really kind of contribute on this team. It's as deep of an Alabama basketball team as I've seen since I've been covering the team.
Yeah, really incredible to watch, and we'll continue to track them. I believe I have it written down somewhere. Their next game will be against Mississippi State at Coleman Coliseum, and that'll be on Saturday. So we'll have coverage and of course, a game story following the game, and that will be on BamaInsider.com. Here with Tony Tsoukalas at BamaInsider.com. This is the Bama Factor Daily Bama Factor, whatever you want to call it. We're coming to you every single day. Yesterday, we had Andrew Bone and Mick Gillespie talking about, recruiting for Alabama. And I think a lot of people are interested to see what happens with this coaching staff, clearly. And you look at Charles Huff, you look at Kyle Flood, you look at Jeff Banks. Those guys played an integral role in Alabama's overall recruiting efforts. And now Alabama potentially could be reaching to the NFL for another assistant hire, and that's going to be Doug Marrone, who is expected to be hired as the offensive line coach. Tony, give everybody kind of the update. Everybody's read all the stories out there that he could be. He's expected to be the coach. It hasn't been formally announced. Neither has Bill O'Brien, by the way. But what do we know about Doug Marrone?
Yeah, so he's been, a head coach for a while now. He coached the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then before that, he coached the Buffalo Bills. He's got plenty of head coaching experience. He's also got plenty of experience coaching offensive line. Look, Alabama's bringing in multiple. I mean, how many NCAA programs bring in two former NFL coaches in the same, offseason, with him and Bill O'Brien, who actually worked together at Georgia Tech in the late 90s. They're coming in, so that Alabama's going to have plenty of experience on this staff. And then look, there's a chance, there's at least some reports said that Kevin Sumlin could be a possibility at the tight end special teams. And then you've got Nick Saban. There's a lot of people on this offense that are going to know head coaching, so that experience should pay off for Alabama, and I think, when you look at it, Doug Marrone, he has college experience too. Obviously he has pro experience. I think when you talk about recruiting, he's a guy that, has recruited. He's recruited in the SEC at Tennessee and Georgia in the early 2000s. But I think when you're talking to recruits now with Bill O'Brien and Doug Marrone, what you're saying is, we've got two guys here that know the NFL, that have NFL connections, that are recently coached NFL teams. And I think that's maybe the push Alabama would make in recruiting is, Alabama's become such an NFL factory. Well, now they've got those connections right there that you can see. And it's almost like, they're becoming a little mini NFL coaching staff as well.
I think you're right. I mean, you hit on a great point. I mean, why Alabama, right? You have all these, factors that contribute to coming to Alabama when you're a recruit or if you're a current player. And this is why. I mean, who else, like you said, who else is going to go out there and add NFL coaches, not assistant coaches, former head coaches to Alabama? And it's pretty incredible what Nick Saban's able to do and the connections that he has. So if Doug Marrone does go through, he'll be the offensive line coach here at Alabama. So stay with BamaInsider.com as we continue to track all this information. But Bill O'Brien, former head football coach with the Texans, and then Doug Marrone, former head football coach with the Jaguars, potentially both joining Alabama's staff. And then, like you said, Kevin Sumlin, I mean, that could be an incredible addition as well. Coaches that are currently still staying for the most part, Pete Golding. I know there was some chatter that, Texas was really interested from the sources that I've talked with. That definitely was something that was real. Texas, threw money at Pete Golding. So from what I gather, Nick Saban really wanted Pete Golding to stay. I know a lot of people have different opinions about Pete Golding and kind of the Alabama defense, but I would assume that Pete Golding's, probably going to get a raise going into the season. Tony, what are your thoughts on Pete Golding, kind of overall in the Alabama defense before we get to our next topic? I mean, because I think when you look at Alabama this past season, a lot of people just look at the offense, right? Najee Harris, Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, all the great things that they did. Now, while the defense was young, the defense definitely contributed to this perfect season. Your take on Pete Golding, kind of just the defense under his scheme?
So the defense this past season, it wasn't bad. It wasn't great either. And I think Alabama fans are used to great defenses. And it didn't have to be great this year. I think Alabama's defense was just okay or just good. but it didn't have to be because the offense was so good. I think this coming year, they're going to need the defense to lead the way. I mean, when you look at the people coming back on this defense, you got Chris Allen, you've got Will Anderson, Christian Harris, DJ Dale, Justin Aboigbe, Jordan Battle. Like, those guys, you're going to have to lead with that defense. It's going to have to be improved because Alabama's offense, while I still think is really talented and is going to put up points, it's not going to be the same offense as it was last year. They just can't with, not only is it losing some of the playmakers, it's losing some of the offensive line. And there's going to be some growing pains. I still think it's going to be a good offense, but I think they might have to lean more on the defense. I don't think they're going to be able to blow everyone out of the water per se all the time. So they're going to need some more stops. I think Golding's a capable defensive coordinator. I think he's kind of gotten a little bit of a harsh time. Look, it's impossible to go back to the 2011 defense, maybe even the 2016 defense. It's just those defenses don't happen as much anymore, just with the way that games change, especially that 2011 defense or the 2009 defense. If some people have gone back to that one as well. The game's more spread out now, and I think it's just really hard to have those expectations when it comes to that dominance on defense. It's just not the way that college football's played right now. So I think that there could definitely be some improvements needed from Golding's defense, but I also think it's probably taken on too much criticism or more criticism rather than it's deserved.
With Tony Tsoukalas, a Bama insider. This is the Bama Factor, the Daily Bama Factor, a new show we've kind of added into the rotation because when I think you look at our channel overall, we wanted to bring you something daily in the morning and kind of deviate from our evening schedule. Now, I know a lot more people are on in the evening times, but there's so much news to kind of track, and we're not going to completely go away from our evening shows because, we love and enjoy bringing that to you, but just kind of the different front considering there's no college football during this time. But as you know, the news doesn't stop, and we'll continue to bring you coaching updates and coaching candidates back at BamaInsider.com. We have a whole list of kind of who's leaving, who's coming back. Also just posted the scholarship tracker. Right now I have Alabama at 91 unofficially, but I've gone through every single guy meticulously, and you can get all that at Bama Insider as well. Andrew Bone put up the big board for the class of 2022. Definitely go check that out on the recruiting front. Lists all the guys and has notes on each of those guys as Alabama turns the page to the class of 2022. My name is Kyle Henderson at BamaInsider.com. He's Tony Tsoukalas. Tony, before we get to the freshmen that we're going to talk about, guys who have played less than 150 snaps, who we think could make a bigger impact in 2021. You talked about it. The defense was young this year. I mean, so much talent returning on the defensive side of the ball. Christian Harris will lead the way at the inside linebacker position. William Anderson, he was the freshman of the year by the what was the award the official award he had? The Shaun
Alexander Award and it's given by the Football Writers Association of America, which is one of the when you're looking at like unanimous All-Americans, that's one of the guys that's one of the groups that decide that. So it's a big award. It's a new award. I think it's only the third one that they started it. I think it went to Trevor Lawrence first, and so but it's like he's the third one to win it. But it's obviously a big national honor to be recognized as the top freshman. Will Anderson had the most sacks of any freshman in the nation, which it's pretty big honor as well.
Definitely. And I mean, someone's saying, there could potentially be some weak points on this defense, but I mean, the experience is coming back, especially on the defensive line. I love it. Right. I mean, Justin Aboigbe kind of leading the way, after Christian Barmore leaves, you have, DJ Dell, you have, I mean, kind of a wealth of guys. Darian Mathis coming back, the outside linebackers with Chris Allen coming back, and the secondary, DeMarco Helms, Jordan Battle. I mean, it's pretty incredible to see all those guys coming back for that nucleus. That's definitely going to be their strength, wouldn't you say, or at least from an experience standpoint going into 2021?
Yeah, I think that defensive front's going to be pretty big. And look, they're bringing in some talented guys as well. Dallas Turner is a guy that is a super talented guy, and that defensive front that should be able to provide pressure too. I mean, like the other guys too that come in, like Drew Sanders didn't really play, but he played a lot on special teams, but he didn't really play. That's the guy that we were expecting to kind of come in. So there's a lot of guys too that I think that the depth will be there, the talent will be there. And I expect this defense to get a lot of pressure on the other team this coming season.
All right, here with Tony Tsoukalis. This is a daily Bama Factor, and we're talking kind of a variety of standpoints. So if you missed it, you can always rewatch it, and then we'll upload it as a podcast as well. We appreciate you guys being here. Tony wrote a story today. You could check it out in its entirety on BamaInsider.com, and kind of highlighting some freshmen that we expect to have a significant role, more of a role in 2021, guys who played less than 150 snaps. So please keep that in mind as we segue to this next topic, because there's plenty of freshmen that played well over 150 snaps, 500 snaps, like Malachi Moore, Brian Branch, even Tim Smith, guys like that played a ton as freshmen. But these are the guys who didn't play over 150 snaps. So keep that in mind. Tony, tell us about the article, and then we'll kind of dive into the specific players you mentioned today.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, kind of dive into some of these guys. We always talk about the next freshman to break out. We wrote about some of the freshmen that could break out this coming season that are incoming. And I think sometimes you forget about the guys that maybe didn't play too much during their first season. So I wanted to get, inside that, that 150 snap range, and that's counting special teams too. Just those players that maybe necessarily didn't see the field as much. You can't forget about them, because Alabama's got a lot of those guys, as you'll see as we go through the names, are big time difference makers. And I think, probably the best way to start is the obvious guy is Bryce Young, obviously, because he only plays quarterback. He's going to be under that 150 snap count. So he's kind of the most obvious name on the list, but obviously, it's a good one to start with, because he's definitely going to be a difference maker this coming season.
Yeah, Bryce Young, and it's really incredible. We've talked about Bryce Young, I think on Monday Night Quarterback. I have a video kind of talking about, Paul Tyson and Bryce Young, guys, who have different abilities, who come into the season leading the quarterback room. But with Bryce Young specifically, he only threw the football 22 times in 2021. We've gone over this several times, but what are you looking forward to most from Bryce Young, besides him leading the offense into 2021? And no, we're not forgetting about Paul Tyson or Jalen Milroe. We're just specifically talking about Bryce Young. So before you mention that, we're talking Bryce Young right now. So Tony, for you, what are you looking forward to most about Bryce Young, and how he can orchestrate this offense?
I think in an ideal world for Alabama, that there's a spring practice, Bryce Young goes in, Bryce Young wins the job, because I think that's going to be key for him to just cement his spot. And I think everyone, I don't want to forget about Paul Tyson or Jalen Milroe either, but I think everyone expects Bryce Young to win this job. It's a lot more straightforward, than it's been in the past after Alabama loses a big time quarterback. So I think in an ideal world, Bryce Young comes in, he wins the job, he gets that confidence, because I think that's really the missing step for Bryce to kind of take his game to the next level. I think when you saw him come in late last year in these games where, most of the time he's just handing the ball off, but when he does get a chance to throw, there's a lot of times where he held onto the ball too much, took a sack, took a fumble. I think some of that is just he needed those opportunities to make things happen. And I think what he really wanted to do was to prove that, hey, I am this 5-star, quarterback that can make these plays. And I think he's probably trying too hard. But when you look, if you give him that offense, he has that confidence, and he knows that he doesn't have to make these plays, that he can be more poised. You combine that with, the fact that he's going to be another year more experienced and more polished. I think I'm expecting big things, but I think that starts in the spring if he's able to really cement his spot. If he struggles in the spring, I just think he needs that confidence. He needs that first step of confidence. I feel personally that he'll get that in the spring.
Here with Tony Tsoukalis, talking about freshmen who played less than 150 snaps during the 2020 season, and who we anticipate to, kind of have a breakthrough in 2021 with more opportunities. The next player we're talking about is Jase McClellan. Jase McClellan, very talented running back, as everybody saw this past season. We saw some glimpses of speed and kind of that breakaway ability from McClellan. Why don't you talk about Jase, and a player that I think a lot of people are excited about? I mean, right here, he ran for 245 yards as a freshman with 2 touchdowns.
I mean, really small sample size, but whenever you're, averaging 10.65 carries or 10.65 yards a carry, I mean, that's pretty good. I know he had had like an 80-yard run and, a couple of really big runs, but he's a guy that can break tackles and he can make people miss. And I think he's a really complete back. There's a chance that he competes for the starting job. I mean, look, there's no certainties. We don't necessarily know Brian Robinson's future. If he comes back, he's probably going to be the starter. But let's say Brian Robinson doesn't come back. Well, you've got Trey Sanders, who's a 5-star talent, really talented, also coming off of 2 season-ending injuries. So, how is he going to come back from those? And can Jase McClellan kind of push him for the starting job if that's the battle? Either way, though, I think Jase is going to get a lot of more opportunities this coming season. And he's a guy that can really do everything. We haven't seen him catch the ball out of the backfield much. That, like I said, really small sample size. It's interesting, and take this with a grain of salt, but he actually had a better offensive grade. Once again, I want to remind you guys, very small sample size, than Najee Harris, which just, I'm not saying he's a better running back than Najee Harris, but I'm saying that, like, as great of a season as Najee Harris did, in the small sample size that we saw from Jase, he was able to kind of match that or even slightly do better. So it just shows you the potential he is. That's the kind of point I really wanted to make with that stat. But he's a guy to really be excited about from an Alabama perspective.
The next freshman we're talking about is Demouy Kennedy. I think coming in, every single freshman that comes into Alabama, these expectations are incredible, right? You have all these guys that come in, and if they don't specifically play their first year, a lot of people might say something negative, and it's like, slow down. You got to look at the depth chart where these guys are fitting in. You might need to put some more weight on them. They might need to learn the scheme, whatever it may be. Demouy Kennedy, 6'3", 215 pounds, or at least that's when he came in. I'm sure he's probably like 225 now, or even more so than that. From Theodore, Alabama. What are you expecting from Demouy Kennedy? He's someone that, of course, we're all really excited to see.
Yeah, he was kind of a forgotten 5-star he's the number 1 kid in the state, according to us. And he's a guy that I think he just came into Alabama a little light. I'm sure that not having a spring camp really kind of hurt him. And then also, Alabama was stacked at inside linebacker. Look at all the people you would have to beat out. They're still stacked at inside linebacker, but I think with the loss of Dylan Moses and now Joshua McMillan, I think there's a little bit more opportunity to push. I still expect the starting 2 inside linebackers to be Christian Harris and then one of Shane Lee or Jalen Moody. But right in that second team, I think Demouy Kennedy can kind of get in there. And then who knows? If he's able to bulk up, he might be able to push for a starting spot depending on how those other guys do. But I think you're going to see him on the field a lot more. Especially than last year, where I think he had 6 snaps, and especially he barely played last year. Mm-hmm. But I think that's a lot because of Alabama's depth, and then also because I think he just needs to bulk up. So if he's able to do that, I think he's a really talented kid. Obviously, he's one of the best players in the 2020 class, and he's a perfect example of, you just can't forget about these kids just because they don't make an instant impact. A lot of it is circumstantial towards the position that they play. There's kids, there's several kids on this list too. Chris Braswell, when I made this list, he didn't make this list, but he's another kid. Don't forget about him. Another 5-star kid at the outside linebacker position, just a position where Alabama has a lot of depth. And this is the reason why I did a story like this, is because, you kind of forget about a Demouy Kennedy, and you shouldn't, because he's one of the more talented players that Alabama has in terms of prospects.
Here with Tony Tsoukalas talking about a couple freshmen to watch. Now, these aren't, the premier freshmen that you saw play for Alabama this past season. These are guys who played less than 150 snaps. So please keep that in mind while we're on this topic. The next guy we're talking about, Javon Baker. Javon Baker, I think there was a time where people were chanting for this guy to get on the field. They were like, Javon Baker, especially when Jalen Waddle went down. We saw more of Slade Bolden, saw a little bit of Xavier Williams towards the end of the season. But Javon Baker clearly is a guy that people want to see play because, he's a bigger wide receiver with elite speed, came in here out of Georgia. Kind of has that alpha mentality about him, like what I saw from him at the high school level. Haven't seen a large sample size. Your take on Javon Baker?
I think when you're looking at this list that I put together, it's Bryce Young and Javon Baker as the 2 players that are probably in the best position to earn a starting spot next year. I expect Javon Baker to be one of the 3 starting receivers. I kind of expect it to be Mechie, Baker, and then either Bolden or one of the slot receivers coming in, maybe Christian Leary. But I think that Baker will be one of those outside receivers. And look, he's a guy that can do a lot. He is physical. He can get away from defenders as well. But the thing that strikes out to me is he makes some insane catches. I don't want to turn the hype up on him too much, but some of the catches you saw Devontae Smith make, Javon Baker's making those catches as well in high school. He hasn't had the opportunity to make them at Alabama yet, but he's the king of some sick one-handed catches. I mean, you can go and you can find them on Twitter, and I wrote a story about it actually in the middle of the season after Jalen Waddle got hurt about just some of the catches he's made. But Javon Baker's a serious talent. I kind of wish we would have been able to see a little bit more of him last year, but it worked out pretty well for Alabama. I just expect him to be a guy that, hooks up well, probably with Bryce Young. And I think he's a breakout player outside of this group. Just in total, the whole team, he's probably one of the biggest breakout players on the team. And so I'm expecting some big things for him.
Here with Tony Tsoukalas, talking about a couple freshmen who we feel could make a breakthrough. You can read Tony's article today that he put together on BamaInsider.com. The last player we're going to talk about in this segment is Jamil Burroughs. I don't even really have a photo of him. We just didn't get to see him. This is the best. I have this photo that we could use, or I have this photo. Look, maybe we should use this one.
There it is. It shows the intensity.
Yeah, it shows the intensity. So let me switch out the bottom graphic. Tony, tell us why we should why we should watch for Jamil Burroughs.
So I know, Tim Smith got the majority of the buzz when it came, to new faces on the defensive line, but Jamil Burroughs also came in. He did a solid job too, and he's a guy that kind of got some more opportunities when LeBron Ray got hurt. He only had, I think, what is it in the article, 65 total snaps, but he's a guy that, just like Tim Smith, showed some promise on the defensive line. He got that opportunity from, according to Nick Saban, really standing out on the scout team. He was a guy that offensive linemen were having a tough time blocking. So he's a guy to watch too. I mean, 6'3", 326 pounds. He probably more of a defensive tackle, but the way Alabama kind of shifts in different packages, he could probably play, as a second defensive tackle, or, he doesn't have to necessarily be the nose guard, but he could be the nose guard. And so I think he adds depth to that strong defensive front that we were talking about earlier in the show. And he's just a guy to watch. I mean, Alabama has so many of these guys. Just don't be surprised if a guy like Jamil Burroughs, quote unquote, comes out of nowhere, because he's just as talented as as some of the other defensive guys on the front. So he's definitely a name to watch. It's kind of funny. He's actually teammates with Javon Baker. So two of these guys came from the same high school at the same time. But no, this is another guy, especially on defense. Sometimes, I think you get more opportunities to make a difference, or to kind of to show off your depth more on defense. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Jamil Burroughs kind of worked his way into the rotation at some point.
Here with Tony Tsoukalas, talking about a couple of freshmen that played less than 150 snaps during last season, how they can contribute potentially in 2021. So we're not forgetting about, Tim Smith or Malachi Moore, Brian Branch, any of those guys, just kind of adding some new faces to watch. And I put myself on mute. I was in the background because my wife came up. She's like, "Can you hear our puppy barking?" We just got a new French bulldog. So he's like, she is barking in the background. I don't think you can hear her. Can you, Tony? You can't hear her.
No.
Okay, all right. So new addition to the family. So we're excited about it for 2021. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. We're going to be doing different videos throughout the week, kind of talking about a variety of subjects. And today we talked about the basketball team to open up, Alabama's potentially new hires from the NFL. And of course, you can go back and rewatch all this. We talked about the defense a little bit in Pete Golding, and then we talked about some freshmen who we are really excited to see during 2021. Definitely hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. We appreciate you guys more than you know. A lot of different moving parts on BamaInsider.com, and you have certainly helped us grow as a company. Tomorrow, I think we're going to have Mick Gillespie come back on and lead his Thursday show. I might be back on. We'll see how it goes. And then on Friday, we're going to have Trey Yannity lead a show. So we're really excited about him. You guys know Trey Yannity from Monday Night Quarterback, so he's kind of grooming him to be another part of BamaInsider.com. So all the coverage back on BamaInsider.com. Andrew Bone, Tony Tsoukalas, Mick Gillespie, Kyle Henderson, myself, Trey Yannity, all the moving parts make up BamaInsider.com. We got a ton of information, so if you want to get behind the paywall, the free 30-day promo code is simply ROLLTIDE at checkout. Thank you very much for watching. Hit the thumbs up, and we'll catch you next time right here on the Bama Factor on BamaInsider.com.